The sky over the dry plains turned the color of old iron on November 4th, 2090, and the wind rose without warning, a hard breath across the empty fields that lifted dust into long ribbons. People in the nearby town said it felt like a storm coming in sideways, not from the sea or the mountains, but from someplace above thought and weather. The first sign was a low hum, not loud, just steady, the kind of sound that settles in the bones before it reaches the ears. Birds went quiet, the dogs hid. Then the clouds split in a thin silver mark, and something fell through. Not like a burning rock or a broken machine, but like a seed pushed by a patient hand. It cut no fire into the sky, it made no thunder. It simply arrived, a dark almond shape wrapped in a soft glow, slowing as it met the air, fighting an invisible push that bent the dust into circles. When it touched down in the scrub a few miles from the road, the light around it dimmed and the shape stayed still, almost humble, as if trying not to scare the land it had just met. The traveler inside was breathing too fast and counting each breath, a trick learned long ago to keep fear small. He had trained for entry on worlds with thicker air and lower sky, but the storm had not been in the plan. His guidance field had buckled when the winds collided, and the ship's skin, more like living cloth than metal, had worked to soften the fall. But even living cloth has limits. He checked systems by touch and rhythm, not by screen, because the displays stuttered with static. His name, the one used by his own kind, could not be said here, not with a human mouth. Back on the 3i Atlas, 3 interlinked stations that traveled like a moving university between stars, named for the triple circle in their crest. He was called a Watcher, which meant he was sent to learn without changing what he studied. In simple words, a Watcher is a quiet guest. He was not supposed to need help. He was not supposed to be seen. He pressed his palm to the inner hatch. The ship tasted the air outside and returned a warning pulse along his skin. Pressure good, heat high, particles heavy with dust, charge unstable. In plain terms, the weather was angry. He opened the hatch anyway. Wind pushed in, warm and dry, carrying a smell like hot stone. He stepped out and let his boots sink into the soil. Gravity pressed a little heavier than training. Not enough to hurt, just enough to remind him that this world did not care who he was. The hull behind him shivered and then went dull, the way a sleeping animal slows its breath. He touched it once, grateful, then turned to the plain and the low horizon and the road beyond. He was alone. The field link to his team had failed in the last descent, and the emergency beacon flickered like a single candle in a wide cave. He tried a manual ping, sending a simple call that any friendly receiver could read. Alive, stable, lost. The wind ate the answer before it could come. He began to walk. He moved like someone who had learned to carry his weight with care. Every step soft, leaving only shallow marks that the gusts were quick to erase. His suit adjusted shade to match the land, more gray when the clouds thickened, more brown when the sun bled through. He kept his hands open at his sides, a habit born from many landings on many wary worlds, because open hands are older than speech and mean no harm in almost every place where eyes can see. The storm talked to itself in low voices around him. He listened for engines, for metal, for the straight lines that always come with settlements. He heard none. He checked the small pack in his belt for water and nutrient gel, found enough for a few days if he was careful, and felt the small ache in his side wake up again. He pressed 2 fingers there, found tenderness and heat. Not serious, but real. He could fix it if he had clean space and time. He had neither. Dust ran across the flats like water. Far ahead, a wire fence cut the land in a tired line. He followed it toward a cluster of shapes that might have been trees or ruins. He was not afraid, not in the sharp way fear usually comes, but the quiet kind that moves in when the plan is gone and the sun keeps going down. He spoke out loud once, A single word from his first language that meant stay, the way a pilot might speak to a ship or a friend might speak to his own heart. The wind took it and did not answer. The cluster turned out to be a corral long abandoned, posts leaning, wire broken, a trough filled with pale sand. He stood in the open gate and watched the sky. The clouds had thinned to high veils, and behind them the light softened, turning the far line of land to a dark thread. He tried the beacon again and got the same soft nothing. He knew then that the night would belong to him and the plane, and that he would have to choose whether to sleep beside the ship or to move closer to whatever people lived here. A watcher avoids contact. That is the first rule. It exists because when travelers meet a world too fast, they break it without meaning to. But rules bend in storms. He pictured the 3 circles of the Atlas crest, the briefings, the careful voices that had told him to be a shadow. Then he pictured the wind lifting dust into the ship's intakes, burying the hull, wearing down the soft edges that made it home. He pictured the quiet that would come if he slept, and the wrong silence that comes before a mistake. He turned toward the road. A road means minds and hands. A road means someone set a path and returned to it many times. He walked until the wind eased, and the first stars opened like small doors in the high dark. He walked until the ground changed from scrub to packed clay, the kind that remembers wheels. Then he saw it, a faint orange point, not the cold blink of a drone, but the warm pulse of a human light. He stopped and watched. The light moved slow, paused, moved again, as if whoever held it was thinking between steps. He could have hidden. He could have waited for a better chance. Instead, he raised his hands to shoulder height, palms forward, and took one step into the open, trusting the oldest language in the universe to say what the storm and the broken link would not. I am here. I am lost. I need help. The man walking along the old dirt road didn't expect to find anyone that night. He had spent most of his life alone, tending to small repairs in forgotten towns and driving endless miles between one empty place and another. But when he saw that strange blue shimmer cutting through the storm like a reflection without a mirror, something inside him told him to stop. He parked his truck on the side of the road, engine humming softly, and stepped out into the wind. The air smelled of dust and rain that never came. At first, he thought it was lightning. But lightning doesn't stand still. The shape ahead of him was tall, still, almost human. It didn't move when the wind hit, didn't flinch when sand whipped through the air. The man called out, "You all right?" No answer. He took a few steps closer. The figure finally turned its head, slow, careful, like someone waking from a dream. The eyes reflected the faint glow of the truck's headlights. Not bright, not animal, just clear, human enough to feel familiar, strange enough to make his stomach twist. The man hesitated. "You lost?" he asked again. The stranger opened his mouth as if to speak, but only air came out. He touched his throat, frowned, then tried again, voice rough and uneven. "Help, please." The sound was soft, the words broken but real. The man blinked, surprised. Whoever he was definitely not from around here. His clothes didn't fit any style the man knew. Smooth fabric that caught light like water. No seams, no wrinkles. The color shifted slightly when he moved, from gray to a deep silver blue. There was a cut on his side, glowing faintly like the last ember of a fire. "You're hurt," the man said, stepping forward. "Come on, we need to get you inside before the wind tears you apart." The stranger hesitated, looking back at the dark plain behind him, as if leaving something important behind. But the cold made the decision for him. He nodded once, small and deliberate. The man opened the truck door, helping him climb in. His weight was solid, heavier than expected for someone so lean, and his skin felt strangely warm. Not feverish, just alive in a different way. Once inside, the stranger watched everything. The dashboard lights, the radio static, the way the man's hands moved on the steering wheel. Every flicker of movement seemed new to him. as if the world itself was something he was trying to learn. The man tried small talk. "What's your name?" No answer. The stranger touched his wrist, and a faint light appeared under the skin, like circuits waking up. A soft tone came from somewhere in his suit. "No signal," he said quietly. His voice was steadier now, though still marked by a strange rhythm, the accent of someone translating thoughts rather than words. The man didn't understand half of it, but felt no danger. "Well," he said, "whatever signal you're looking for, it's gone in this weather." The stranger looked out the window. "Storm," he said. "Field, broken, lost." The man frowned. "Field? You mean the wind?" "Energy," the stranger corrected. "Made to protect. Failed." He spoke like someone who had learned English from broken transmissions, each word carefully chosen, as if afraid to say the wrong one. The man nodded slowly, not understanding but sensing truth. "You crashed, huh?" he asked. The stranger looked down, eyes dimming a little. "Yes, ship sleeps." That word, ship, made the man's hands tighten on the wheel. He didn't ask what kind of ship. He didn't want to. He had heard stories, seen headlines about visitors from the Three-Eye Atlas, the great vessel that traveled between stars. Governments called them explorers, scientists, messengers of peace. People in small towns called them something else. Omens, ghosts, proof that the universe was too big for comfort. "You're one of them," the man said finally, voice low. The stranger turned his gaze back to him and nodded once. "I was. And now?" He looked out at the storm. "Now I am lost." The road stretched endlessly through the dark. The man switched off the radio. The sound of wind against metal filled the silence. "You can rest at my place," he said after a while. "It's nothing special, just a house by the field. You'll be safe there till morning." The stranger turned his head, studying him. "Why help?" The man shrugged. "You asked." The stranger seemed to think about that. After a moment, he said softly, "Thank you." They drove in silence. The headlights carved a thin path through the dust, revealing the outline of a small farmhouse ahead, half hidden by dry weeds. When they arrived, the man guided him inside, lit an old oil lamp, and pointed to a chair. The stranger sat stiffly, eyes scanning the room. The books, the tools, the framed picture of a woman long gone. "This is home," the man said, setting down a first aid kit. "You're safe now." The stranger looked up at him. "Home," he repeated, trying the word as if it were new. "Yes," the man said. "Home." The stranger smiled, barely, a small curve of the mouth that looked like relief mixed with exhaustion. He leaned back, eyes closing for the first time since he fell from the sky. The man sat across from him, watching the strange light fade from the wound in his side. He didn't know who this traveler was or why he had come, but as the storm outside calmed to a whisper, one thought wouldn't leave his mind. Sometimes, the universe sends lost souls not to be found, but to find someone else. Morning came slow, the kind of soft gray light that creeps into a room before anyone is ready for it. The storm had passed, leaving the air heavy and still. The man woke up in his chair by the table, neck sore, coffee cold, and for a moment he thought the night before had been some strange dream. But then he heard quiet movement from the other side of the room. The traveler was awake. He sat by the window, staring outside with an expression that mixed wonder and sadness. The man noticed how the sunlight reflected off his skin. Not like glass or metal, but something faintly alive. Something that shifted when he breathed. "You didn't sleep much," the man said, his voice still thick with mourning. The traveler turned, slow and calm. "Too bright," he said, gesturing toward the window. "Your star burns close." The man smiled a little. "We call it the sun. You'll get used to it." The traveler tilted his head, like he was trying to record the word in his mind. "Sun," he repeated softly, tasting it. "Warm, loud," the man chuckled. "Never heard anyone call it loud before." The traveler looked at him, eyes calm but serious. "Everything here speaks," he said. "Wind, light, even walls. The world is not quiet." The man wasn't sure what to say to that, so he poured 2 cups of coffee instead. He handed one to the traveler, who took it carefully, watching how the steam curled upward. "Drink," the man said. "It'll help." The traveler brought it to his lips and froze after the first sip, surprised by the heat. He set it down quickly, blinking. "Fire," he said softly. The man laughed. "No, coffee. It wakes you up." "It burns." "That's how you know it's working." For the first time, the traveler smiled. Small, hesitant, but real. The man saw it and felt something shift inside him. He didn't know what kind of being sat across from him, but at that moment, it didn't matter. He looked human enough to need kindness, and that was all he needed to know. Hours passed. They worked together in silence most of the morning. The man fixed the generator behind the house while the traveler watched, fascinated by every small tool, every screw, every spark. He asked questions with gestures when words failed. Sometimes he pointed at things, wire, wrench, flame, and waited for the man to name them. When he repeated the names, his voice carried a strange calm, as if each word were sacred. "Hammer," he would say. "Yes," the man answered. "Hammer." "Sky," the traveler whispered later, looking up. "Sky," the man repeated. The rhythm of those exchanges felt almost like music, slow and patient, like 2 people building a bridge from nothing but sound and trust. By afternoon, the traveler's strength returned. He moved more easily, though still with that light caution, like someone who didn't want to break the world beneath his feet. The man noticed how he avoided stepping on the smallest insects, how he paused to touch the bark of an old tree, as if memorizing the texture. "You've never been on a planet before, have you?" the man asked. The traveler looked thoughtful. "Not like this one," he said. "Most worlds we see are quiet, asleep. No voices left." The man frowned. "Voices?" "Life," he corrected. "Here, it breathes everywhere. It confuses me." "Confuses you how?" "Because it feels," he said simply. "This place feels." There was something in his tone that made the man look away. He didn't understand what it meant to live in silence, but he knew what it was to feel lost. Maybe that was enough. As the day went on, their communication grew easier. The traveler began to pick up gestures, expressions, tone. When the man laughed, he tried to laugh too, a little late, a little awkward, but trying. When the man cursed at a stubborn bolt, the traveler copied the sound, thinking it was just another word. That made the man laugh harder than he had in months. For the first time in a long time, the house didn't feel empty. That night, after dinner, they sat outside by a small fire. The stars were sharp above them, the kind of sky that stretched forever. The traveler watched in silence. "Can you see your home from here?" the man asked. The traveler nodded slowly. "Somewhere there," he said, pointing toward the darkest part of the horizon. "Too far to name. You miss it?" He hesitated. "We don't have a word for that. When we leave, we let go." "That sounds lonely." "It is quiet," he said, "but maybe loneliness is another word for quiet." The man didn't answer. They sat there, letting the fire speak for them. A few minutes later, the traveler turned to him and said softly, "You helped me. You didn't ask who I am. Why?" The man poked the fire with a stick and shrugged. Didn't seem like the kind of question that mattered. The traveler studied him for a long time, as if trying to memorize his face the same way he memorized words. "On my world," he said finally, "we are told not to touch, not to trust, not to feel. But you live by it." "That's what keeps us alive," the man replied. The traveler looked back at the fire, and his voice dropped to a whisper. "Then maybe that is what I came here to learn." They stayed there until the flames turned to embers, and the night swallowed their shadows. 2 beings from different worlds, sitting side by side, not needing language to understand that something had begun to change inside them both. Something small, quiet, and deeply human. The morning of his departure began too calm, the kind of stillness that feels wrong, like the air is waiting for something to happen. The man woke early, made coffee, and found the traveler already outside, standing in the open field behind the house. The first light of dawn stretched over the land, washing everything in gold. The traveler's suit shimmered faintly, the colors shifting as if alive. He looked up at the sky, eyes fixed on a point the man couldn't see. "They found me," he said softly. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled just enough to betray what he felt. The man stepped closer. "Who?" The traveler didn't turn. "My people. They answered my call." He paused for a breath that sounded too heavy. "They will come for me today." The man's stomach tightened. "And if you don't go?" The traveler looked down, his eyes reflecting the sunlight like water. "They'll come anyway. They'll search. They'll see this place. You. I can't let that happen." The man didn't say anything for a long moment. He looked out at the empty horizon, the endless sky that was about to steal his only friend away. "So this is it," he said quietly. "You just leave?" The traveler turned to him now, and for the first time, there was no distance in his face. He looked completely human, tired, afraid, but at peace. "I don't want to leave," he said. "But where I come from, there are rules. Feelings are controlled. If they learn what I've felt here, they'll erase it. They'll take you from my mind." The man frowned. "Erase, like forget?" The traveler nodded. "Yes. They'll make it as if this never happened. As if you never existed." The words hit harder than the man expected. He tried to speak but found no words. The wind picked up, brushing dust across the field. Above them, a low hum filled the air. Deep, steady, not from the earth, but from the sky. The traveler closed his eyes. "They're close." The man felt anger rise, a useless kind of anger that can't stop what's coming. "After all this? After you learned what it means to live, to feel, they're just going to take it?" The traveler opened his eyes again. "That's why I came here, to learn. I didn't expect to understand love." The man froze. "Love?" The traveler nodded. "That's what this is, isn't it? When you risk for another without reason. When you stay, even when leaving is easier." He took a small step closer, his expression soft. "I didn't have a word for it before you." The sky deepened to a pale blue, and the hum grew louder. A beam of faint white light began to cut through the clouds, slow and deliberate. "It's them," he said. "They'll arrive in moments." The man's throat felt dry. "Then run," he said. "Hide in the hills. They don't have to find you." "I can't," the traveler whispered. "If I hide, they'll think this world is hostile. They'll come with fear, not curiosity. I must go back to protect what I found here." He stepped even closer now, close enough that the man could see the faint glow under his skin, like veins made of light. "But I can leave something behind." The man frowned. "What do you mean?" The traveler raised a small device from his wrist, a sphere no larger than a coin. It pulsed once in his palm, blue and warm. "This holds memory, emotion, thought, truth. I'll store what I've learned, what I felt. They can erase my mind, but not this." He pressed the sphere into the man's hand. "Keep it safe." The man looked down at it, then back at him. "You'll forget me." The traveler shook his head. "Maybe, but you'll remember for both of us." The sound in the sky turned sharper, a vibration that seemed to shake the air itself. Dust swirled around them, and the beam of light grew wider, descending slowly toward the field. The traveler's eyes glowed brighter now, matching the light above. "It's time," he said. The man grabbed his arm. "You don't have to go." The traveler met his eyes and smiled. A real human smile, full of warmth and sorrow. "Thank you," he said, "for teaching me how to be alive." The light touched the ground. The wind roared. The man turned his face away from the brightness, but he didn't let go of the traveler's hand until the last possible second. Then the world went white. When he opened his eyes again, the field was empty. The hum was gone. Only silence remained, wide and endless. He stood there for a long time, holding the small blue sphere in his palm. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Weeks passed. He never told anyone what happened. People in town talked about strange lights, about a storm that didn't behave like any storm they knew. But he stayed quiet. Some nights, when the sky was clear, he would sit outside, hold the sphere up to the stars, and feel the faint warmth move through his skin. He didn't hear words. He didn't see faces. He just felt it, calm, steady, alive. And every time he whispered the same thing into the night. "You're not lost anymore." Somewhere, far beyond the sky, on a ship filled with silence and light, a traveler sat alone, unaware of why his chest ached when he looked at the stars, unaware of the name his heart had learned, but his mind could no longer recall. And on Earth, a man kept that name safe, glowing softly in his hand, a memory of love that even the universe couldn't erase.